Simon Cowell couldn't hide his terror when 5-year-old said, "I know what you did to my daddy." The words hit Simon Cowell like a physical blow. 5-year-old Lily Harrison stood at the center of the Britain's Got Talent stage, her tiny voice cutting through the studio silence with surgical precision. "I know what you did to my daddy." Simon's famous composure shattered instantly. His face went white, his hands began to shake, and for the first time in 20 years of judging, Simon Cowell looked genuinely terrified. What this little girl knew, and what she was about to reveal to millions of viewers, would expose a secret Simon had buried for 3 years. But to understand why those 8 words sent shocks through the entertainment world's most powerful man, we need to go back to where this nightmare began. It was a bright Tuesday morning at the London Palladium, and Britain's Got Talent was holding auditions for what would become the most controversial episode in the show's history. The atmosphere was typical BGT energy: hopeful contestants, excited audience members and judges, ready for another day of discovering talent and crushing dreams with equal measure. Simon sat in his customary position, arms crossed, that legendary expression of calculated boredom already in place. The morning had been filled with standard auditions: singers who couldn't sing, dancers who couldn't dance, and acts that defied all logic. Simon had delivered his usual cutting critiques with surgical precision, each comment designed to separate genuine talent from wishful thinking. "Next up," announced the production coordinator, "we have Lily Harrison, age 5, from Manchester. She's here with her mother, and she wants to sing a song for her daddy." Simon barely looked up from his notes. Child performers singing for absent fathers were as common as rain in London. He expected another saccharine performance followed by tears when he delivered his inevitable critique. But what walked onto that stage was different. Lily Harrison was tiny, even for a 5-year-old, wearing a simple white dress that her grandmother had carefully ironed that morning. Her blonde hair was pulled back with a small blue ribbon, and she carried herself with an unusual stillness that immediately caught everyone's attention. While most child contestants bounced with nervous energy, Lily moved with purpose. "Hello there, sweetheart," Simon said, his voice taking on that slightly warmer tone he reserved for very young contestants. "What's your name?" "Lily Harrison," she replied, her voice clear and surprisingly strong for someone so small. "And how old are you, Lily?" "I'm 5 years old, Mr. Cowell." 5 years old. "And I understand you want to sing for your daddy today?" That's when Lily looked directly at Simon, with eyes that seemed far older than her years. "My daddy can't be here today, Mr. Cowell, but he's watching from heaven." The audience collectively sighed, another heartstring-tugging backstory. Amanda Holden's hand moved to her heart. Alicia Dixon leaned forward with sympathy. David Walliams prepared his gentle, encouraging expression. But Simon noticed something else, something in Lily's eyes that made his stomach tighten with an unfamiliar feeling. "I'm sorry to hear about your daddy, Lily," Simon said carefully. "What was his name?" "Michael Harrison," Lily replied, never breaking eye contact. "He was a singer, too. He came here 3 years ago to audition for you." Simon's pen stopped moving across his notepad. The name didn't immediately ring a bell. Thousands of people auditioned each year, but something about the way Lily said it made him pay attention. "And what song are you going to sing for us today?" Simon asked, his voice slightly strained. "I'm going to sing the song my daddy wrote for me before he died. It's called 'The Truth Always Finds a Way.'" The studio fell silent. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Lily positioned herself center stage, looked directly at Simon Cowell, and began to sing. Her voice was pure, crystalline, with an emotional depth that seemed impossible from someone so young. But it wasn't just her vocal ability that stopped everyone cold, it was the lyrics. As Lily sang, it became clear that this wasn't just a song about loss or love. It was something else entirely. When the powerful man sits in his chair, making dreams disappear into thin air, does he remember the faces of those he's destroyed? The families left broken, the hope he's devoid? Simon's face began to change. The bored expression faltered, replaced by something that looked almost like recognition. Lily continued singing, her 5-year-old voice delivering lyrics that cut like a blade. 3 years ago, you looked at my father and laughed at his music, called it just bother, but Daddy kept trying, believed in his song, until the day that his heart couldn't be strong. That's when Simon Cowell's world began to collapse. The memory hit him like a freight train. Michael Harrison, 3 years ago, a struggling musician from Manchester, who'd auditioned with an original song. Simon remembered now. He'd been particularly harsh that day, dismissing Michael's heartfelt ballad as amateur drivel, and suggesting he find a real job instead of wasting everyone's time. Michael had left the stage in tears, but that wasn't unusual. Hundreds of contestants left Simon's presence in tears. It was part of the show, part of his brand. Simon had thought nothing more about it. But as Lily continued singing, the full horror of what had happened began to unfold. Daddy came home and cried for 3 days, said his dreams were crushed in so many ways. He stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped trying to write, until one cold morning he gave up the fight. Simon's hands were shaking now. He gripped the edge of the judge's table as the realization hit him. Michael Harrison hadn't just been rejected on Britain's Got Talent. He'd spiraled into depression afterward, and from the sound of Lily's song, that depression had been fatal. The audience was beginning to understand what they were witnessing. This wasn't just a tribute to a dead father. This was an accusation. A 5-year-old girl was using her father's song to hold Simon Cowell accountable for his death. Lily reached the song's climax, her voice growing stronger with each devastating line. "So I came here today to sing Daddy's song, to show you the damage when judgment goes wrong. You can crush all the dreams that you want to destroy, but the truth always finds a way, even through a little girl's voice." When she finished, the silence was deafening. Simon stared at Lily, his face completely drained of color. For the first time in his career he was speechless, not because he was moved, but because he was terrified. That's when Lily did something that would be replayed millions of times across every social media platform. She walked directly to the judge's table, looked up at Simon with those impossibly wise eyes, and spoke the words that would haunt him forever. "I know what you did to my daddy, Mr. Cowell, and now everyone else knows too." Simon's terror was visible to everyone in the studio. His famous composure cracked completely. He started to speak, stopped, then tried again. "Lily, your father." "That wasn't," Simon stammered, but no coherent words came out. Amanda Holden looked confused. "Simon, what is she talking about?" But Lily wasn't done. With the brutal honesty that only children possess, she continued. "Mommy showed me the video of Daddy's audition. You laughed at him. You said his music was stupid. You told him to get a real job. Daddy came home and cried, and then he got sick in his heart, and then he died." The studio audience was stunned into silence. Several people in the front row were crying. The camera operators didn't know where to point their lenses. Simon tried to regain control. "Lily, sweetheart, your daddy. What happened to your daddy wasn't—" "Yes, it was," Lily interrupted with 5-year-old certainty. "Mommy said you broke Daddy's spirit. She said some people can't handle being told they don't matter, and Daddy really, really mattered to me." That's when Simon Cowell did something unprecedented in BGT history. He stood up and walked away from the judge's table, not to comfort Lily, not to explain himself. He walked away because he couldn't handle what was happening. The most powerful man in entertainment was being held accountable by a 5-year-old, and he was running. "Simon, where are you going?" David Walliams called out, but Simon didn't answer. He kept walking until he was backstage, leaving behind a studio full of confused judges, a traumatized audience, and one small girl who had just exposed the human cost of entertainment cruelty. The cameras kept rolling as Amanda Holden rushed to comfort Lily, who stood alone center stage, confused by the adult reaction to her song. "Did I sing it wrong?" Lily asked innocently. "I just wanted Mr. Cowell to know that Daddy was a good man." What happened next would change Britain's Got Talent forever. The producers called a halt to filming while they figured out how to handle the situation. Simon remained backstage for 20 minutes, reportedly making frantic phone calls to his legal team and publicists. When he finally returned, his usual confidence was nowhere to be found. The show's format required him to give Lily a verdict, but how do you judge a performance that's essentially an accusation of manslaughter? Simon sat back down, looked at Lily, and spoke words that would define the rest of his career. "Lily, your daddy was right about one thing. The truth does always find a way. And the truth is, sometimes I forget that behind every audition is a real person with real feelings. I'm sorry I couldn't see that when your father was here." It wasn't an admission of guilt, but it was the closest thing to an apology Simon Cowell had ever offered publicly. The episode never aired in its original form. Instead, BGT released a heavily edited version that removed most of Lily's song and Simon's breakdown. But in the age of smartphones, nothing stays hidden forever. Audience members had recorded the audition on their phones, and within hours, clips were everywhere. Lily Harrison began trending worldwide. "Simon killed my daddy" followed shortly after. The full story of Michael Harrison's suicide emerged in the weeks that followed. Friends and family confirmed that his BGT rejection had indeed triggered a severe depression. Michael had been struggling financially, his marriage was under strain, and Simon's brutal dismissal of his life's work had been the final blow. Simon faced the biggest crisis of his career. Sponsors threatened to pull out. Fellow celebrities distanced themselves. Mental health advocates called for his resignation. But perhaps the most devastating blow came from an unexpected source, Lily herself. In a follow-up interview with her mother, 5-year-old Lily was asked if she forgave Simon Cowell. Her response, delivered with the innocent wisdom that only children possess, became the most quoted line of the entire scandal. "Mommy says forgiveness is important, but I don't think Mr. Cowell is sorry Daddy died. I think he's just sorry everyone found out." Those words from the mouth of a 5-year-old captured what millions were thinking. Simon's apology felt calculated, scripted, designed more for damage control than genuine remorse. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Britain's Got Talent implemented new mental health protocols for rejected contestants. Simon was required to attend sensitivity training. The show established a counseling fund for performers struggling with rejection. But the real change was in Simon himself. Those who worked with him noticed a difference. The cutting remarks became less frequent. The cruel dismissals were replaced with constructive criticism. He seemed genuinely haunted by what Lily had revealed. 3 years later, Simon still hosts BGT, but he's never been quite the same judge. Every time a contestant takes the stage, he sees not just a performer, but a person. Someone with feelings, with dreams, with a family that loves them. And somewhere in Manchester, Lily Harrison, now 8 years old, watches every episode, making sure Simon Cowell remembers the lesson she taught him about the power of words and the weight of responsibility. The truth, as her father's song predicted, had indeed found a way. Through the pure, devastating honesty of a 5-year-old girl who knew exactly what Simon Cowell had done to her daddy.